Welcome to the show, ladies and gentlemen. This is the Political Vigilante. My name is Graham Elwood, and we have with us from Status Coup, Jordan Chariton. Jordan, you've been Status Coup. First of all, if you're not familiar with it, it is an excellent indie media outlet, and you really have a team of people that you send out. I mean, you really cover as much as you can, and you were at the forefront of covering the Flint water crisis when you were at TYT and everything. So really appreciate the work that you've done. Tell us what you and your team has seen from these two ridiculous conventions. So last week we, if I'm not mistaken, we had a bunch of Republicans at the Democratic convention talking about how Trump isn't good enough on war. And now we've got this, I don't know, last night his wife was talking about Trump and all the peace and the love that he's a part of. Like the night before they had this. Okay. So what have you seen from you and your team, like on the ground at these two conventions?
A train wreck is the best way to put it.
Yeah.
I was with I was at the Shadow Convention in Milwaukee last week. So there was actual, stuff going around the convention center. Corporate media didn't show it. But I would say for the first few nights, you had about 20-ish, 25 Bernie Sanders supporters from all around the country that actually came to Milwaukee to protest wearing yellow vests. So if there is a yellow vest movement in America, I would say its origins might be in Milwaukee. So I wanted to be there to, even though it was a small group, obviously you're not going to get a ton of people during a pandemic, just speaking with these protesters that are not voting for Joe Biden. These protesters, some of them were delegates, represent thousands of people from the places they came that I would say, based on taking the temperature, are not voting for Joe Biden. And judging by the basically 1996 RNC convention we saw as the Democratic Party's convention, I think that it's almost like they're intentionally trying to lose, because we're already seeing polls coming out. Biden's lead is shrinking among independents. Trump, who has presided over 175,000 deaths, an economic disaster due to his inaction, Trump is starting to close that lead. And among independents, Biden is now down. And based on my interviews at a Trump rally that was there, because Trump was trolling the Democrats, he went to Wisconsin during the DNC convention. The excitement and energy you see from these Trump supporters, many of whom, I thought they were crazy in 2016, speaking with these people, it's a whole new level and a lot more, I would say, violent this time.
Really? What specific examples make you believe, or did you witness that telling you the Trump supporters of 2020 are more violent?
Honestly, I covered a ton of rallies in 2016 when I was at the Young Turks, probably like 40 to 50. I got the therapy bills to prove it. And, I got a sense that there was there was racism and nativism at these rallies, but there was only a few times I actually felt like, these people might deck me or jump me. Most of it was just kind of kooky, crazy, people. And there were some that were actually good people that were just being hoodwinked by Trump, factory workers who had their jobs sent. At the Oshkosh rally that I covered at the DNC convention, which Trump was there on night one, I got a sense that I was going through a whole block interviewing Trump supporter after Trump supporter, and I felt a lot more of a threat where, some of these folks might jump me. You had, particularly among the, I'd say, I don't know, age 19 to 30 range. If you watch Back to the Future, you remember, Biff,
right?
Like this kind of high school jock. And they were actually being egged on by their parents. At some points, I was interviewing one person with 20 people around them shouting at me. You heard anti-Semitic comments off camera. I don't remember how it came up, but I referenced me being Jewish to somebody I was interviewing, and off camera, somebody said, that explains it. So, and there was also later on in our broadcast, there was actually, I think he was like a Latino biker. I don't know. But anyway, a Trump guy who confronted counter protesters, just screaming the N-word at some of the black protesters, calling some of them lesbians and all this crazy stuff. He was what I would say was a provocateur. But I just got a sense from 2016 to 2020, if it was a 7 out of 10 in terms of the crazy meter, it has reached a 10. These folks, it's not just that they don't want to be challenged, because I'm not lobbing softballs at them. I particularly had some testy moments because, I would say 20% of them were wearing masks. Most of these people were not wearing masks. So we debated that, but it definitely felt more from some of the insults that were coming my way, some of the people crowding me, that violence could erupt.
Yeah, they seem very, and since, the George Floyd protests of late May, early June, they seem very sort of emboldened in terms of like ramping up the white nationalism and the we got to take people out kind of vibe.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to talk about that in a second, because there's now a lot of people on the left who are like, well, I'm getting a gun, or I got a gun, or whatever. And it's like, we're really, what is happening the last several nights in Kenosha since they shot Jacob Blake, the Kenosha police shot him in the back 7 times. Now it sounds like maybe he's going to be paralyzed the rest of his life. What is the sense too of, by comparison, that the Trump supporters, are exhibiting this? They're emboldened by him, by Trump saying, he says all this dog whistle stuff or just flat out racist stuff. And then this convention, last night is, Trump, pardoned a black man and did a naturalization ceremony with all these different people, which was just so like, all conventions are theater. The big 2 parties always do, the conventions are theater, but I don't know. How do you compare this with the Bernie delegates saying we're not going to vote, and this sort of, there's not a lot of excitement for Joe Biden. You covered the primaries. I remember and Jimmy would show it a lot on his live show of you covering this guy who was like, yeah, I liked how he said malarkey and I got a free t-shirt, and there's no excitement. How are you seeing that? You've obviously covered the primary. You and I ran into each other at a couple of Bernie events. Like, how are you? Like, there's no. I don't see anybody wearing a Biden shirt at any protest. I see a lot of fuck Trump shirts, but I don't see. And like here in Beverly Hills, we've had Trump supporters confront Black Lives Matter. I don't know. I know I'm sort of going all over the place, but trying to get like a temperature of these 2 parties in these 2 weeks of conventions. And then it's, I don't know. What is your sense of that? I know I'm just kind of giving you a very broad question here, but like, it seems like Trainwreck it's not descriptive enough. It's like, it's so, and you're just seeing this country getting fractionalized into all of these little subgroups, and which is, in my opinion, by design. They don't want working class white people and working class black people or Latinos getting together going, oh, the ruling class is screwing us. So I don't know what other, when you were interviewing people at the Democratic convention versus the Trump supporter convention or events, what are you noticing?
Yeah, with the obvious caveat that there was not a ton of people to interview at the Democratic National Convention. The last night was the biggest night of protest because multiple protest groups joined. I would say, to me, every single person at that Trump rally is going to go out and vote. Like,
right.
There was no doubt in my mind. From old to young, they are all going to go out and vote, even if there's an uptick in coronavirus, because they don't seem to even care that much, to tell you the truth. They think it's a hoax. So not just from the Democratic National Convention, but just from the interviews I've done to seeing Twitter, and contrary to the Democratic Party, they say Twitter is not real life. Well, a lot of these people vote on Twitter, the most active. I would say that the same group of people that resulted in Hillary Clinton losing. Corporate media won't tell you this. Hillary Clinton got 5% less black people than Obama got in 2012. She got 5% less Latinas than Obama got in 2012. She got 6% less age 18 to 29. That's why she lost. It was not James Comey. It was not Putin. She significantly tailed off from Obama in 2012.
Right.
Those same groups, I'm talking young African Americans under 40, young Latinos under 40, just young people, white under 40. They could be convinced to vote for Joe Biden if something tangibly was promised. But nothing tangibly is being promised. And I was actually surprised. I've spoken with several black voters who were not happy about him choosing Kamala Harris, particularly people under 40. Again, because the generational divide, younger people, black, brown, white, are not as loyal to a political party. So just because Biden picked a black woman, a lot of black people under 40 know who that black woman is. They know that she, jailed a lot of black men in California, better than I, being from California. So the interviews I did, every single person I interviewed said they weren't voting for Biden. They took the effort to actually come to Milwaukee during a pandemic when there's not even an actual real convention there to protest every night. And I think everything Biden is doing, literally that whole convention was trying to get Mitt Romney to vote for Joe Biden, basically trying to get the Mitt Romneys of the world to vote for Joe Biden. There's not enough moderate Republicans in the country that will vote for a Democrat. They would either sit out or vote Libertarian. And there are certainly, what the Democrats are doing right now is giving permission to that same group, the under 40s across black, brown, and white. It's giving permission to not vote for Joe Biden.
Yeah. Literally their convention. Joe Biden is backed by the Lincoln Project, which just tells you the Democratic Party is the Republican Party of 30 years ago. And the Republican Party is just a fascist group of I don't know what, Klan member psychopaths, but that's the thing that is so telling. And there is this clear generational divide. And I even see it in show business and all these comedians that I started with in my 20s and the 90s who are now in their 40s and 50s, who many of whom have had successful 6 and 7 figure careers in show business. They're the ones shaming people who are being critical of the Democratic Party because they're the ones who are like, they wanted to go back to normal because normal was good for them. The Obama years, they were at brunch. They didn't care about the drone strikes. You and I talked about this the last time you were on your show. They didn't care about Occupy Wall Street getting the shit beaten out of them. They didn't care about Yemen. They didn't care about 6 to 8 million people or whatever the number is losing their homes. They didn't care about Flint. They didn't care about Standing Rock. They didn't care about any of it. And the people that are 40 and under did not grow up watching MSNBC and YouTube. They have no allegiance like Rachel Maddow's my team member, just like the Republican, the older people like Hannity's my guy, Anderson Cooper's like my guy. And they don't fall for the identity politics. Like on my social media, it was all people in my age group who were like celebrating Kamala Harris, and mainly younger people were like, who use the internet, who use shows like this one and your show to get their actual information, not from the corporate media. They're the ones that are like, and they're the ones at the protests. It's not a bunch of Gen Xers and baby boomers. Look, there's people of all age groups protesting. There's people of all age groups that watch both of our shows and are paying attention and waking up. But it's the young people who are like, hey man, you assholes, I have no future because of you. Like there's no jobs for us. The environment's collapsing. And they go get all their information online. None of them have sat in front of a TV and watched the 8 o'clock news or whatever. Like what? They don't even know what that is. And so they go online and somebody says, hey, Kamala Harris put 120,000 black men behind bars. They go, wait a minute. They'll question it. They'll research it and go, yep, that's true. They get all their information from the internet. And it really seems like that, and we've talked about this before. All of us, lefty progressive journalists have been like, the Democratic Party would rather lose than let progressives take over that party. Tulsi Gabbard didn't speak 1 second on that convention stage. She's the one who took Kamala out in the debates last year. The only reason AOC spoke is because Bernie like gave her 30 of his seconds or whatever, and no one's buying this, because I wonder if the Democrats are going, well, the economy is going to implode no matter what. So why don't we let Trump in there and blame it all on him?
Right. I think something that I'm seeing that's not talked about is, which goes to maybe they're trying to lose or they're just this stupid. Biden's calculation and his campaign's calculation is there's enough like patriotic Republicans out there that will just, Trump is such a threat and a breaker of norms and all these things that they'll go over with Joe Biden, even if he's not their guy. But most Republicans, I don't want to generalize, but having covered politics for a while, most Republicans' first thought is not the moral character of the candidate. It's, am I getting my tax cuts? Are taxes low? Are regulations cut? Are regulations being cut? Are we, super duper? Is the candidate super duper Jesus and pro-life? That's most Republicans I know. It's not so much like, we need somebody that is an amazing moral leader. So, yeah, maybe the Lincoln Project, because they're a bunch of grifters, and most of these former Bush people who have become, never Trumpers, that's a very small group. Yeah. So most Republicans around the country, they're not Donald Trump's reprehensible nature. Even if, they're not huge MAGA people, it's not enough to go vote for a Democrat because they don't want their taxes increased even marginally. Right. They don't want regulation, and they won't tolerate somebody who might appoint Supreme Court justices that keep Roe versus Wade. So the bottom line is they have miscalculated. By the way, this was Hillary Clinton's strategy in 2016, try to get like Jeb Bush's donors and Republicans. Chuck Schumer said for every for every blue collar worker we lose in Pittsburgh, we'll pick up 2 moderate Republicans. It's insanity. There's not enough Republicans that would vote for a Democrat, even a Democrat like Biden, who's basically a 1990s Republican. And the other thing I'm seeing, and Trump's campaign is a little schizophrenic at this point, but sometimes, and they did it last night at the RNC, when they hit that NAFTA argument, hitting Biden over NAFTA, which I wish Bernie would have done more, when they hit Biden for being pro-globalization and being instrumental in all the jobs being offshored, it's pretty damn crushing because it's one of the few things Trump doesn't have to lie about. It's true. Yeah. And it's a convincing argument. You think these people that voted for Trump in 2016 in these Rust Belt states, if you look at the actual exit polls, which call me, crazy, I'm a journalist, I looked at the data, the top issue in Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, Ohio, and Michigan, 2 top issues in the exit polls in 2016, trade, immigration. Well, trade is because Hillary was for TPP. She came from the NAFTA Democratic Party. They still care about that. And if Trump continues to hit Biden on that, it's a major vulnerability. Most people were screaming this during the Democratic primary. And of course, they propagandized that this is the safest, most electable. He's actually, to me, I think Pete Buttigieg would have a safer chance beating Donald Trump than a guy with such a long record on wrong and on the wrong side of most of the key issues of the 20th and early 21st century. So to me, that's why these polls are shrinking. Trump's strategy to only focus on his base, the pundits say it's crazy, but he might just, if all of his base comes out versus Biden, who again has the same depressed turnout that Hillary had among the youth, progressives, younger black people, younger brown people, I think Trump would beat him in a narrow electoral college victory.
Yeah, and the like upper middle class and wealthy neoliberals, they don't care about NAFTA because it didn't affect them. $15 an hour minimum wage doesn't affect them. Medicare for all doesn't affect them because they, I live in show business. I got all these Hollywood writers making these 6 and 7 figure, going on Twitter, these blue check people. Oh, you folks who won't vote for Biden, you're handing it. And it's like, you won't call the Democratic Party out on any of this crap because none of this stuff affected them. They're like, NAFTA, that was 1 million years ago. Yeah, because you didn't lose your job. But people, and all they do is focus on, Trump's racism, which is a legitimate threat, and he's acting like a fascist, but they refuse to acknowledge, and they're running the same like Hillary lost in 16, like, well, let's use Hillary's strategy. Who would do this? Like, who would run a losing strategy? And they refuse to acknowledge that Trump, for all of his racist, xenophobic, sexist rhetoric, he talked about jobs. He did speeches in 2016 in front of closed factories and said, I'm going to open this back up and give you a job. You and I thought it was nonsense, but they didn't, because we don't live in those towns. And these aren't people who have nice white collar jobs. They lost their jobs while Hillary was doing the $10,000 a plate, donor tour. Trump was going to all those Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, those states that Hillary didn't campaign in. And he's doing it again. And they won't even attack Trump on things that are legitimate to attack him on. Like and Bernie is such a quitter, disappointed. I just can't, that he wouldn't attack Joe Biden on this. He should have been going, I'm the guy to beat Trump. Here's why. And right now, if Bernie was the candidate, the numbers would be overwhelming, because he'd be like, I'm going to reinstate the pandemic task force that Trump got rid of. I'm going to give you free healthcare. I'm going to do student debt forgiveness. I'm going to make your lives better on these checkbook monthly bill issues that Democrats refuse to acknowledge. They just come in with identity politics. And it's like, hey man, a third of the country is not working. There are 28 million looming evictions. And yay, Kamala, who didn't identify as a black woman until she got into politics. She identified as Indian. So I can't even, and they refuse to acknowledge, they won't. And the crazy, and those diehard Trump people that you're talking about, they're crazy. It's like a cult, and there's racist, and it's like, feels like Germany in the 30s, and they're all Second Amendment people. And it's like, ooh, it's terrifying, but they just, nope. Any facts you bring up about Trump, but the goddamn vote any blue will do crowd won't, you bring up in the same way that Trumpers say, there you go, libtard, libtard snowflake. Anytime you bring up facts about what he's done, the $1.5 trillion tax break to billionaires and all this stuff that is hurting workers. If you had any kind of populist candidate with any kind of populist progressive platforms, you would crush Trump. Trump would be a footnote. It would just be, oh, remember that wingnut and his handful of crazy fans? Well, we came in with all these populist platforms, and this notion, you're going to pull Joe Biden to the left. Name one time a centrist Democrat was president and got pulled to the left. Never happened. It's never happened. Well, Carter went to the left. He did one term. JFK they put a bullet in his head and they killed his brother just for thinking about running. Everyone else, Clinton and Obama and Truman, all were centrists.
All I got to say, and I've told my viewers, vote for whoever you want. I'm not going to tell you to vote for, but I think it's delusional when I hear some in progressive media, some progressives be like, hold your nose, vote Biden, we'll get at him day one. You're not moving Biden if you weren't able to move him during the actual election when he's trying to get your vote. It's the Democratic Party, and it's politics 101. They'll do whatever they got to do to get your vote. And once they're in the office, you've lost your leverage. Honestly, to me, I will cover protests as long as I am on planet Earth, but protests is not going to get it done. I've always said the oligarchy, the bourgeoisie, the power structures, they'll just wait it out.
Right.
I mean, they'll say, oh, let the kids march, burn things down, whatever. It doesn't affect me. Protests with an attached economic boycott. That's the only way actual change will happen. And that's one of the things, what I think is dangerous for Biden is a lot of the people that I've been interviewing and speaking with are starting to get that cynicism that, honestly, I think we need to focus outside of electoral politics. So even if I did hold my nose and vote for Biden, it doesn't matter. As bad as Trump is, we got to focus on things outside of electoral politics, divestment campaigns,
yes,
economic boycotts, things like that. So if the voting base that Joe Biden actually needs to come out, maybe again, they might just be this stupid if they think it's moderate Republicans instead of under 40 Black, Latino, and Bernie Sanders supporters. But if cynicism and despair and hopelessness is being cemented to the point where they don't even think voting would make a big difference, they have a better shot with economic organizing, things like that, rather than electoral politics, then Biden's screwed. The other thing I would say is, Biden, this moralistic argument that the Democratic Party is making, if you noticed in the whole DNC convention, they barely mentioned the eviction crisis right now. They barely mentioned that people are now on week 3. The people that were getting that expanded $600 a week are now like on week 3 without that. The fact that you have people being pushed to eviction court right now. We have a
Tuesday.
Right. We have a frankly a silent depression that's forming. They barely mentioned it. Why? Because they don't actually have bold proposals to get us out of it, and their donors won't allow them to make those bold proposals. So the whole convention is about a moralistic argument. This man is Lucifer, elect me. But the problem is, for those people that are facing eviction, for those people that have lost that $600, their main concern isn't whether Trump's a menace to society. It's, I'm about to lose my apartment or house. I'm about to get kicked out with kids. I'm having to decide between medicine for the kids or groceries. That's what people are focused on, not, oh, Trump is, an abnormal, unusual threat. That might be what Rachel Maddow and MSNBC care about, because they're not facing eviction. But the voting bloc that Joe Biden needs to inspire is the younger generation. Donald Trump being a degenerate, Islamophobic, racist, rapist, this and that is not breaking news to them. But it's also not enough of a reason for them to get out if you're not promising them, like you just said Bernie would have promised them, immediate relief. And Biden-Harris is not promising them immediate relief.
Hey everyone, great ways to support the show are go to patreon.com/Graham Elwood, where you get bonus content for as little as $2 a month, or rockfin.com/Graham Elwood, a blockchain cryptocurrency platform. That's the future. Also, GrahamElwood.com, where all my merchandise is on sale and ships exclusively with the United States Post Office. Like my Vigilante Volume 2, The Dark Knight. We only made 50 of them. They're going fast. Go to GrahamElwood.com to support the show. I'm on Venmo and PayPal, P.O. Box, all of that, GrahamElwood.com.